Alright, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Akeem and welcome to today's vlog. We had an insane week and an interesting week at week 1 of the college football season. And I'm here to give you a recap of what we just saw. Now the first game I need to talk about was my game of the week between Alabama, number 2 team in the nation, against number 8 Michigan. Alabama just manslaughtered the Wolverines 41-14 due to a great effort on that defensive side and the offensive side as well, especially with Eddie Lacy scoring a touchdown run and freshman T.J. Yeldon, who rushed for over 100 yards in this great victory. This offensive line for the Alabama Crimson Tide is outstanding. Now, based on this huge victory, Alabama actually bumped up one slot in the AP poll. They are the new number 1 team in the nation, and they do deserve this. This team actually reloaded and are continuing what they had last season when they won the national championship. Nick Saban just keeps on finding players, heavy, great recruiting, and they ended up picking up great replacements. This team can run the table and could be one of the favorites to win the SEC championship again this season and possibly a national championship after what we just saw. And I was very shocked in this game. I thought Michigan was going to pull the upset. Now, during this entire week, there was a couple of other manslaughter games like West Virginia over Marshall and USC over Hawaii, but there was a lot of close games and a lot of people were shocked to see what happened over this past week, including yesterday's matchup between Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech, in which Virginia Tech ended up pulling off the 2017 win in overtime. Quarterback Logan Thomas had a decent game, 230 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Especially, I was a little bit shocked in that game for West Virginia because they scored basically on going on their first couple of drives, and I thought they was going to score more touchdowns. But that Georgia Tech defense actually held out Logan Thomas and company for a couple of quarters, and the score actually didn't start jumping up until the 4th quarter and leading into overtime, in which Virginia Tech pulled the 3-point victory. But it was a great game. Sticking with the ACC and the SEC, it was a great, outstanding game between Clemson and Auburn. Clemson ended up pulling off the 7-point victory, 26-19, due to the great efforts of running back Andre Ellington, who rushed for 231 yards. He's actually the nation's leading rusher this season. This is a great running back, and I knew he was a lot better than what we've been seeing for the past couple of seasons. He has great speed, and he could be the leading rusher in the ACC this season. I think he's a great running back, and I think he could make a run for the ACC Player of the Year as a sleeper. It was a good game. One other manslaughter game I forgot to mention, Oregon against Arkansas State. That was an obvious pick, but the reason why I called that out is because of the situation with quarterback Brian Bennett. He actually decided to stay for now, and he's actually going to be the 2nd string quarterback behind freshman Marcus Mariota. He had a great game, 18 for 22, 200 yards and 3 touchdown passes. This is a good quarterback, and I think I understand why Coach Chip Kelly decided to go with him as that number 1 quarterback. Other games I need to talk about, some close games like I mentioned this week. Going back to that subject, starting with South Carolina and Vanderbilt, in which the Gamecocks pulled the 4-point victory, 17-13. Good comeback by running back Marcus Lattimore, who rushed for 110 yards on 23 carries and 2 touchdowns. But the one player I liked most about this game was the efforts and the leadership coming out of Connor Shaw, the quarterback for the Gamecocks. He showed that he's a tough quarterback, and he showed a lot of toughness in this game because he's been dealing with injuries with his ribs and his legs. But he showed a lot of heart, and he ended up helped the Gamecocks pull off that 4-point victory. Next close game we need to talk about is Michigan State University against the Boise State Broncos. Michigan State had a good game, especially with running back Le'Veon Bell. 44 carries for 210 yards. He proved that he could carry the bulk of the carries. He didn't really get that many games where he had over 20 carries per game, but this season, based on this game, it shows that he is a good, durable running back, and especially with this performance against a 9-man front for most of the game from the Boise State defense, he still rushed for 210 yards. That says a lot, and he can actually make a good run for this year's Heisman Trophy. Couple other big close call games that I need to talk about. going with Oklahoma against UTEP. 24-7 victory for Oklahoma. They had a bad game, especially on the offensive side, and the defense actually gave up a big run for UTEP, but they still had up just close to good enough to pull off the 17-point victory. I was very shocked with the performance from Oklahoma. Some people even had them as one of the top 3 teams in the nation coming into this season. But after this game, this kind of proves why I went with West Virginia as my winner for the Big 12 championship. They are still, OU is still the Big 12 favorites, but I think West Virginia has a chance of beating this team. OU is just still kind of rebuilding, still kind of get the chemistry together with Landry Jones and his new receivers. He's still more comfortable with Kenny Stills, but still, I thought he was going to do a lot better in this game against UTEP. They struggled a lot in this game, and like I said, there was other teams that struggled, like Kansas State. They pulled off the 51-9 victory against Missouri State, but this was a close game for most of the first half, and Kansas State didn't start getting their act together in the second half. Another close game, number 12, Wisconsin pulled off the 26-21 victory over Northern Iowa. Come on, that's an FCS school, and they struggled against them in their home field. Wow, this pretty much shows that the competition has risen in college football across the nation. Another close game we need to talk about. Actually, I'm so sorry about the pause. Got backtrack a little bit. Another close game, another game that actually lost from a new FBS school. Texas State actually beat Houston 30-13. Like I said, that competition has risen, and I'm very shocked of that loss as well. But overall, this week it was just a crazy week. So many close games, and I also need to talk about some couple of other games that I mentioned as my games of the week. Going against Tennessee, against NC State. Tennessee actually pulled off the 35-21 victory due to the good quarterback display from Tyler Bray, 333 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. But I did like the performance of stellar true freshman Cordario Patterson, who had 165 yards of total offense and 2 touchdowns. But the biggest shocker to me, I think the best performance overall, also another upset, I'm sorry, I got to backtrack a little bit. Ohio actually beat Penn State 24-14. Ohio can actually run that table and become a BCS buster, but I do believe that they need a couple of teams to lose this season in order for them to make it to a BCS bowl game. And of course, Ohio has to stay undefeated. But the biggest shocker overall this week was the performance of quarterback Nick Florence of Baylor. He shocked the hell out of me. 341 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. He reminded me so much of what Robert Griffin III did last season in his first game in the victory over TCU. Florence had a great game against SMU, and that was a game that actually went with the Mustangs over the Bears. SMU actually lost 59-24. It was a great play by quarterback Nick Florence, and I'm definitely going to keep an eye on this kid. He actually is so far shown that he's a good replacement for RG3. He also had to go along with 341 yards passing, 24 yards rushing, 8 yards per carry. This was a great, stellar performance. Now, overall this week, I had a bad week. I went 8-4 this week, 66%. You guys already know my goal. I'm trying to get from the range from 70 to 75. Actually, this year, I'm trying to get to the range of 80%. But starting off at 66%, I'm not too happy. I'm going to get my act together for week 2 of this season. Now, overall, this week, what we learned, first of all, we've learned that Alabama is still one of the teams to beat. They replaced just about every player, most of their top players who left for the NFL. Well, D. Milliner and Eddie Lacy had a great game. A.J. McCarron, he didn't do too much passing because of the great efforts from that defense. They just dominated that game, and I kind of see why they're the #1 team in the nation. They are still the team to beat, and they're still continuing to reload and finish off what they had. They're continuing what they had last season. And last but not least, as I mentioned before, the competition across the nation has emerged. Even FCS schools is giving FBS schools some competition and a run for their money. So I'm really interested and intrigued to see what's going to happen in the conference, in the interleague conference play with the ACC, Big East, Big 12. I'm kind of interested to see what's going to happen between these inside the conference when we get more in depth in the conferences alone and those key matches. And I think this is going to be a very competitive year for each conference. Now I'm kind of like unsure who's going to win each conference after what we just saw this first week. This is up for grabs for just about anybody, and I think even Alabama should keep their eyes out too, because what they saw this past week with some of these top teams, Alabama can fall themselves. Do not get that part twisted. Now, overall, I think this was a great week, and I cannot wait to see what happens later on in the season. This is going to be a tough year for all the schools across the nation. Now, next I'm going to catch you guys is on Thursday to give you all of my Week 2 predictions. Thank you for watching today's vlog from Pro Football Exclusive. I'm your man, Akeem McCall. Be easy.